Hi, Karen.
Hi, Julie. Hi.
It's my first ever attempt at Instagram Live.
Well done. That's really good.
It's going to work.
I know. Well, this is about I think this is only my fourth.
Okay.
And the first one I did, the person I was doing it with hadn't realised that you couldn't do it on a laptop, and I didn't know either because that's why I said
Oh,
to you, don't, because it's like,
yeah.
you can only, it used to be, didn't it, that you could only post
Okay.
on a certain thing. So yeah, so it's got to be done on the
Oh.
app. So
Yeah, I wouldn't have known that, to be honest, and the laptop probably would have been my first choice. But so I've sort of got
yeah,
my phone precariously balanced, and I'm hoping that it doesn't fall over.
well, I bought myself one of these. Hello, everybody who's joining as well. We're just setting up, getting ready, so that we can have our chat in a minute. Yeah, I bought one of those Amazon ring lights with the phone on, but the stand
Oh,
is really precarious, and so I'm
yeah.
like, I'm worried that when I touch it, it's gonna, if I just go like you just see the ceiling in a minute.
That could happen. So if I vanish, that's what's gone wrong.
Yeah. Yeah, so you've had a really exciting few
Yeah,
weeks, haven't
I
you?
really have. It's been non-stop, really. So yeah, it's just I'm still in the eye of the storm, and it's all like very much a whirlwind at the moment. So I'm just kind of catching my breath. But I think with everything that happens, I still can't believe it's actually happening. It's just like a
No.
weird dream that's kind of, yeah. So that's interesting. Oh, thanks, Hero. I just saw one of my friends has joined and said she's halfway through the book. So
Yeah, I
thank
saw that.
you.
Yeah, I didn't know. Yeah, yeah. I mean, I read the book. I read it in. I think I read it in two
Oh,
sittings, and
oh wow.
I loved it. Oh, Jenny's
Oh,
just
oh, hi,
arrived as well.
Karen.
I'll
No.
wave to Jen.
Actually, Jen dropped me a message earlier and said, like, don't join from your laptop. Make sure
Oh
it's
well, actually, it might have been Jen then that did it because she was the first one I'd ever done.
that was
So
a good tip.
yeah, I think it was Jen actually. Yeah, so so Jen taught
I've
me the
actually
lesson.
got a Cornwall scene in my background as well, so
Nice,
so you should
lovely.
appreciate that.
Yeah, yeah, that's really good. Yeah, I'm getting because I used to do them when I did them when I worked at the library. I used to do
Okay.
them on Zoom,
Yeah.
and then we used to put them out on Facebook Live.
Oh wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
which was I had to. My husband used to help to do it, and so
Oh,
when I left the libraries and did them on my own, I decided I had to be self-sufficient, so I decided to
yeah.
go for Instagram Live. So
Okay. Yeah.
um,
I mean, like I said, I've never done one before, so but
yeah,
touch wood, it's all working. So I'm happy with
yeah,
that.
Jenny says yes, she had the laptop malfunction. It was
Oh,
my friend Vicky who was sending the message through going, no, you can't do it on a laptop, and I had
oh,
no idea.
oh, so
So now
thanks
I
again
know.
for the tip.
Yeah. Oh yeah, Jenny's liking your Cornwall print as well. So
Yeah, yeah. We went to St Ives. We go quite a lot, and we went just before the pandemic.
nice.
And yeah, and it's just so beautiful. And when I got home, I was like, I really need a Cornwall print for the office to kind of
Yeah.
brighten it up.
Well, we're really lucky because we're only like next door to Cornwall, although I tend to stay
Um,
away from it in July and August
yeah,
because it's just
yeah,
so busy. But yes,
yeah.
St Ives is beautiful, and
So
it's
beautiful.
lovely in the winter as well when it's
Yeah, so we
when
normally
it's
go. So I've only ever been in March or October, so kind of like, and we've been really lucky with the weather. It's been great, but even then,
yeah.
it feels really packed. It's like really, really busy. So in the summer, it must be,
Oh,
yeah,
in the summer it's the little streets that it's
yes,
hard to actually get down the streets. It's so
yeah,
busy. Yeah,
I
it's
bet.
bonkers. Yeah, it really is. Yes, so we're getting lots of people
Oh,
joining.
hi, Amy.
That's great. So
Yeah, so
I'll
I have,
start.
yes, this is new to me completely. So obviously, the people that are joining, you can see their names popping up as well.
Yeah, yeah, and whereas before when I and also if there's questions, I can see them, and we
Okay.
can. I think can you see them as well? You can see
Yes,
them as
yeah.
yeah. So
Um,
if there's anything that you clock that I don't, if you want to answer,
okay.
if not, I'll sort of try and slot it in. If
Yeah,
we're
of
talking about
course.
something, I'll try and slot it in. So
Yeah. Okay.
yeah.
Yeah.
So so thank you for joining me this evening. It's brilliant, and I'm really delighted to talk to you about Always by Your Side. which is your debut novel.
Yes,
Um,
yeah,
so you were an English teacher, weren't you, before? And
yeah,
then became you're a
yeah.
copywriter now,
Yes.
yeah, it fills me with dread because I'm
A lot of writing going on.
yeah, a lot of writing and a lot of like writing and sort of knowing, sort of picking up things. I guess that sort of comes from the teacher as well, doesn't it? Really, is like
Yeah, I
marking
guess
and
so. Although I kind of, and I've chatted to friends about this, and I kind of went through school sort of like in the 80s, and I feel like grammar wasn't so much of a thing then. And
no, I'm the same.
I don't ever remember like being sort of taught grammar, not in the way
No,
that it's taught now, particularly in primary schools.
yeah,
So I feel like, yeah, so I feel like probably kids in year six know more about grammar because they have to get through their SAT and they have to do the SPAG test and they not, they get taught it in such detail.
yeah, I
And I've always
know.
kind of said, actually, I think like 11-year-olds know more about grammar now than like undergraduates at university doing an
Definitely.
English degree because it
Yeah.
just wasn't a thing that ever really kind of cropped up. But
No,
so I,
not at all.
yeah, I don't. So I'm never, yeah. So that is definitely something that crops up in my work, but I feel like it's quite controversial for me to say I'm not a grammar fan, but I'm not a massive grammar fan.
I'm really in awe of people who I've got some friends who are just I when I friends I used to work with, who colleagues and friends who I used to sort of ask to check my things because I know
Yeah.
that I
Oh,
don't.
okay. Yeah.
The commas is not the commas, the
Oh,
apostrophes of like whether it's
oh,
on the end of the
yeah.
S or yeah, it's just like you said. I
Yeah.
went to school in the 80s and I it never was even a thing.
No,
I
it
think
really
no,
wasn't. It wasn't. And I
no,
think also it can become a real barrier to people writing because they get so
yeah,
kind of nervous about like the grammar and is this right and is this wrong? And I think that's a real shame because actually just
yeah,
write and don't worry about that stuff. That's what that's kind
yeah.
of my mantra.
Good.
Controversial moment.
Um, so would you like to tell us a bit about, so for people who I saw that somebody was halfway through it, and for people who I've not
Yeah.
given any big spoilers because obviously we want
No.
people to read it if they haven't read it. So
Yeah.
would you like to just tell us
Yeah,
in your
of
words about it?
course. Yeah, I kind of struggled with that. So I was like, I don't want to give any spoilers and I want to try to just like give a little bit of info about the story. So the story is based around Rose, who is a teacher in London. And let's just say that she finds herself without a job. And she gets a phone call to say that her Aunt Jean, her aunt that she's kind of grown up with, has had a fall and she's in hospital and she races off to Sussex. She leaves behind her life in London. She leaves her fiance behind. She finds herself in Sussex. She doesn't have a job. She doesn't quite know what the plan is. And she kind of rediscovers herself a little bit, I think. She starts to get her confidence back as we move throughout the book. She starts to realise what's important to her, what makes her happy. And yeah, and then I guess her London life kind of catches up with her a bit and she's got some decisions to make. I think hopefully there's no spoilers in that in that
No,
little.
I don't think so. I
And yeah,
think
I
yeah.
guess it's all about her realizing what she needs and what she wants to be happy and what kind of life she wants to have.
No, so I think that's it. No, I think there's absolutely no spoilers in that. And I think it was for me, it was a really lovely sort of escapism novel. I really enjoyed. We'll come back to that in a second because I
Yeah.
really enjoyed the setting and the characters. But you actually wrote the book in COVID, didn't you?
Yeah.
How did that sort of come about? And
Yeah.
was it an idea you've had for a while, or?
So it's one of those things where I'd always thought that it's something that I would have loved to have done, but there was just never time to just be like, oh, I'll just write a novel. um, and I also just thought it wasn't realistic. I just thought, it's kind of like a pipe dream. It's never going to happen. It's not real life. It's not, so I kind of just never gave it a chance, I suppose. And then just before, so it was like February 2020, just before lockdown, I went to a kind of like an authors festival in Essex that was organised by Lizzie Chantry, who's another Essex author.
Yeah.
And I was chatting to the authors at the events and looking at some of their books. And it was just, I guess I just thought, actually, you know, a lot of them have got day jobs as well. And they're kind of, you know, it's real life. It's normal people that have written a story and they've kind of made it happen. And I found that really inspiring. And it kind of got my cogs sort of ticking as to like, well, maybe this is something I could try. Maybe I could give it a go. And then obviously March 2020, COVID hit. I got COVID like 5 days before the lockdown, so really early. So yeah, I remember it was like, I think it was like the 18th of March 2020.
Wow.
Kind of had a bit of a cough one evening, and then by the next day just couldn't get out of bed, and I was really quite unwell for quite a few weeks. And it sounds really cheesy and it sounds like a real cliche, but I remember thinking, like, when I get better and when I'm strong enough, I'm just starting to write that novel. I'm just going to do it. I'm just going to go for it. And I had a real kind of like seize the day kind of mentality. So probably like end of April, I started writing, and it just kind of poured out of me, and it just kind of happened. And I think, you know, with all the lockdowns, I'm so thankful for that, because it was a real lifeline. It was a real escape. You know, every time things were not good, which they weren't for lots of us, I'd just go back to Blossom Heath, I'd crank up the laptop, I'd write a few chapters, and it was just this total escape into this other world that, like, we didn't have a world really of our own at that point, did we? It just was like, you know, everything kind of stopped. So suddenly I had the time, because obviously work was really quiet. And it just, so I kind of feel like it just was all meant to happen at that time, and it just kind of, that's, you know, and it just kind of happens. And then probably by the October that year, I probably had like a very rough first draft of the book. So it kind of, it was sort of like a perfect storm of things that weren't necessarily good things happening, but I actually feel like that I really love the fact that something really good came out of what was a really horrible year for the entire world, really. So so it was quite, I suppose it's quite a unique way that it sort of happened.
It's really interesting because you do really feel, I mean, there's lots of books where, you know, you go into them and you sort of get that feel of escapism, but I really did feel it with this. And I wonder whether that's because of how you wrote it, and, you know, that you actually went into it. So you sort of took us with you.
Possibly. I think it just felt like this other world that I'd kind of created that was so far from reality. Like, we couldn't do any of this stuff in real life. So it was almost like you're kind of living through the story, aren't you, a bit, and sort of creating what you'd like to happen. So it was just, I feel very fortunate, not, you know, just fortunate how everything kind of happened, really, and all came together.
It must have been quite scary having COVID early on as well. So you said about that sort of seize the day thing, because obviously now I'm fortunate I haven't had it yet. And I keep thinking I'm going to get it at some point. But, you know, to get it early on, it must have been quite frightening, really. And so that obviously pushed you to do something that you...
it was. And I think it was that, like, and also there was that thing that I wasn't 100% sure it was definitely that. I thought it probably was, because I've had flu before, and this was like a whole new level of so and I've never had any breathing problems before, so it was all like, it was a whole new thing. So I had it, my other half got it a few days later, so we were pretty certain. And it was just that feeling of like isolation and being so poorly. I mean, you know, if you've had flu, it's like a struggle to kind of go and get some water or like move. And just thinking, I can't just ring someone up and say, like, can you come and help us? We're really ill. I can't even just go to the doctor. I can't.
No, I know. It was really quarantine, wasn't it?
So it did feel almost like that was a movie. Like, suddenly I was in Contagion or something. And like, this is really happening. And so it did, I think, so there was definitely that fear of actually feeling quite scared and thinking this is quite, and obviously on TV, all we were seeing at that point was you know, that you're in hospital, everyone's wearing these suits, and you've got to see your family on video, and you just not knowing what was going to happen. So it was very, very unique kind of experience, really, but not in a good way. Not at all. Although the good thing that did come out of it was the book. So
because one of the questions I was going to ask you was, did you the sort of setting in Sussex? So I don't know Sussex at all. It's not somewhere that
Yeah,
I've been. It's somewhere that it looks lovely when you see it on the TV and things.
yeah,
Um, did what because you were writing it in lockdown and obviously you
yeah.
couldn't sort of visit these places. Are they
Yeah.
places that you knew or
Yeah, so my other half is from Rye, so he's the Sussex connection. All his family
yeah,
is still in Rye and that kind of area, so we visit quite a lot. And it's such a, it's such a beautiful town. You've got all the little cobbledy streets, you've
yeah,
got the rolling hills and the countryside. So it was somewhere that I knew, and I kind of feel like that makes it easier writing about somewhere you know and that you've experienced. So it just seemed like, yeah, that was like a no-brainer for it to be there.
yeah?
And I don't know if I could have written about somewhere I've never been. I think that would have been quite difficult.
No, I think it's difficult, isn't it? Because I know some authors who wrote in lockdown who wrote about places sort of did like a lot of research, but they were
Yeah,
obviously authors that had written before as well. So to do it as
yeah.
your debut as well,
Yes, yeah, yeah, because you couldn't
because it
have
must
gone anywhere to
no,
do research. So yeah, so that was kind of the obvious choice, really. And I know the Cotswolds quite well as well. I've got family there, so that was another option. But it was just, I just felt like Sussex was a good fit, and it kind of
yeah.
worked. And Rye's so beautiful, and you've the cobbled streets, and it's just so, it is
Mm.
so
It sounds
picturesque.
lovely. It
It
really
is.
did
Go and
sound
visit.
lovely.
Yeah, yeah, definitely visit.
Well, I did apart from the because Rye they go to Rye when Ollie comes down, doesn't he? So
Yes, yeah.
let's briefly go back to the characters. So we went so Rose is lovely. I absolutely loved Rose right
Yeah.
from the
Oh,
outset.
yeah.
She's not been treated very well, has she?
No.
Um, and so when she ends up at Blossom Heath, she's sort of looking at her life as a whole, isn't she really? And then
Yeah.
she's quite nervous and yes, and Ollie, I think I was interested with Ollie because I don't want to give too much away about him, but he's
Yeah.
not a particularly pleasant guy, is he?
It's
But
not the
he
best. It's not the best fiance.
but yeah, but I didn't dislike him as much as some people that come across in books before.
Okay.
He just wasn't very pleasant, was he? You just thought she
No.
could do better.
Yeah, and it's just different priorities. I think like their priorities have kind of shifted, and
Yeah.
I think that's what going to Sussex makes Rose realise as well, like what her need,
Mm,
what's important to her.
yeah.
But yeah, he's not. Yeah, he's not the perfect boyfriend, is he? Really? No.
No, but she's really lovely, isn't she? So
Yeah,
she's a teacher and she's a really good teacher.
yeah,
And then, you know, fortuitous for her, the teacher at the school has an accident, doesn't she? So she
yeah,
sort of steps in as
yeah,
a sort of temporary measure, which
yeah.
she's quite nervous about, isn't she? She's quite anxious
Yes.
about that because of what
Yeah,
happened.
yeah.
Um, and did you sort of use any of your own experiences as a teacher to sort of, inform
Yeah.
Rose's
I mean,
character?
I guess I always knew Rose was going to be a teacher because I used to be a teacher, and I just think it's something that I kind of feel like it's easier to write about what you know and
Yeah,
environments that you're familiar with. So Rose was always going to be a teacher from day one. Like there was no other job for Rose. That's what she was
no,
going to do. And I think, yeah, I mean, I guess you kind of see other people's experiences around you and your own experiences. And I think
yeah,
everyone's probably been in situations where they feel like their confidence has taken a knock, and how that impacts you and how that affects you. And like you say, Rose does feel a bit nervous to kind of move forwards. She's a bit hesitant about whether what she should do about the job. So I think yeah, I think that's something that we can all relate to. I know that I definitely can. I'm sure that lots of people can. And I think maybe that's, I guess that's part of just getting to know Rose, isn't it? And seeing her, like you're on her
yeah,
side from like, well, hopefully you're on her
yeah,
side from like chapter one. And you're kind of rooting for her to kind of to gain that confidence back. So yeah, so there definitely was kind of, I think the fact that obviously it was based in a school, that was always going to happen because of my
yeah.
teaching experience.
because there's quite a lot of drama in the book as well, isn't there? I think, yeah,
Yeah,
you know, I wasn't expecting, you know, because it is a nice, gentle read, but there is some real
yeah,
sort of points, isn't there,
yeah.
where, you
There's a bit
know,
of tension,
yeah,
hopefully.
and also the lovely Scout. So we have
Yeah,
to, so Scout the
yeah,
dog comes into
yeah.
the book quite early on, doesn't
She
she?
does.
Rose
She's
comes.
an important part of the book,
She's
definitely.
very, I think she's
Yeah,
quite a central character actually, and I really liked that.
yeah,
I like books where animals have become, you know, part of
yeah.
the central. Was that always a plan for you? Did you always sort of know that?
That was always the plan. So I had a rescue border collie myself, who he's passed away now, but he was just a massive part of my life, and there was always going to be a rescue dog, and it was always going to be a border collie. That was always going to happen. So yeah, that was really important that Scout was there almost from day one for Rose,
Mm.
and that relationship kind of blossoms. And yeah, that was always going to be, there was always going to be a rescue dog in the story that was going to be quite important, not just sort of peripheral, but fairly central to the story.
Yeah,
Which I think Scout is. And yeah, so
absolutely.
yeah, I think that's a really important relationship for the book, as well as all the other love stories that are happening. That's also one.
Yeah, and I really liked the Grace, the vet, because she's sort of quite she sort of clocks quite early on, doesn't she, that Rose is quite smitten with Scout, and but she really
Yeah,
tries to sort of prepare her, doesn't she,
yeah,
for like the fact that, you know, somebody
yeah,
might come and claim her, and in the
yeah,
beginning, you know, that's really hard, isn't it? To
yeah.
think that, you know, because they don't really know where she came from in
No,
the beginning.
no.
Um,
And I think I used to, so prior to the pandemic, I volunteered at Dogs Trust Essex as well.
oh yeah,
So I did that for a couple of years. And that always really intrigued me, like particularly with the strays, that you don't know
no,
like what their
no,
life was or what had happened to them before. And it's just so I think that always got my imagination going a bit,
mm,
what's this dog's story? Like what's happened, or you just know, and it's quite hard to think you'll never know. You just
no,
think you
I know.
know. So that really interests me, and I think probably the storyteller in me, I'd always be kind of thinking, having a chat with the dogs,
Yeah.
being a bit like, I wonder wonder what your
Yeah,
story
where have you
is.
been?
Yeah, what have you been up to? And
Yeah,
sometimes you
I
feel
can.
like you could get little clues from maybe things that they knew or training that they
Mm.
had or their likes and dislikes and that kind of thing. So that always really interested me to think, what has your life been up until now?
I was a really rough. I used to do fostering for the Springer Spaniel
Oh, oh
welfare,
wow, okay.
but I was a really rubbish foster
Oh,
mum because I ended up adopting two.
that's a good thing, though. That's a good thing.
It is, but I was just never very good at giving them back.
No, I would
So
be
I,
awful. Yeah,
yeah, I was completely with Rose on that. I was like, no. So I was thinking, uh-oh, this is not good.
I'm with you. I'm with you. I'd be terrible.
I mean, they do, and some of them have, you know, such amazing sort of stories where they've come from. I mean, we generally knew where the ones we had came from because
Yeah,
they came from owners generally and were passed on. But yeah, I mean, some of the strays and things, they like somebody's
yeah,
just said, tying the knot design has just said if dogs could speak. I mean, if they
yeah.
could, definitely we would. Yeah, there would be some great stories out there, wouldn't there, of
They really
what
would.
they've
And I
been
think
through.
it's such a special bond. And I think like the dog gets a second chance, but also like the best bit of volunteering was always when dogs were going home with their new families, and it was just like
Oh
that
yeah,
joyous moment, and just actually what it brought to the humans, and like you could see that bond and that excitement and that, and it just honestly, like I'd be like welling up, welling up on the reception desk. But it was so lovely, and it's just, yeah, so that was just such a special relationship. I just thought I want to kind of get that into the book as well.
so with when you were sort of did the book sort of, you said that you wrote it quite quickly. Did you sort of, are you a planner? Did you sort of know what it was going to be, or did it just sort of, like you say,
Yeah.
come out of you?
Yeah, I'm not a planner. I'm really not a planner. I don't know. I don't really know how to explain it. I kind of wing it, I think. And I think I've got a rough, like, so I had a rough idea.
Yeah.
But as I write, like ideas happen and I go, oh no, that would be better, or this would work, or so it kind of
Yeah.
just evolves. But and it was interesting actually because I think when I looked back at my like original synopsis that I tried to write before I started writing, I was like, yeah, that is really different to like how this has ended up. So I think yeah, I've got a vague idea, rough plan, but I'm definitely not I know some people really plan. I feel like maybe I should do that. But I haven't so far, but I feel like maybe as I kind of learn a bit more about the writing process, then I might start to do that. And I don't know. I just, yeah, it's just that at the moment that's working. So I'm kind of
Yeah,
just going
some
with that.
people, I think some people sort of are really, and some people just can't. Some people feel like you do that they should, and then they try
Yeah,
it and they're just like, I just can't do it like that. So I think
yeah,
it's just what works for you. If it works for you, then it's fine, isn't it? I don't think there's a,
yeah. I hope so.
it's not like you
Let's
have
hope it
to,
carries
is
on
it?
working. Yeah, hopefully it will.
Um, so when you sort of with was the sort of escapism and the romance, all that sort of like uplifting, sort of hopeful
Yeah,
story, was that really important to you as well?
yeah,
When you
definitely.
were writing the book, is that the sort of novel that you always wanted to write? Was that type of novel?
Yeah, I think they're the kind of books that I like to read.
Yeah,
So yeah, and particularly again, I know we've sort of spoken about the pandemic a bit, but I think also I just feel like that escapism that, I read because I want to kind of escape somewhere and be uplifted and get that feel good feeling and that happy ending. And that's was always what I wanted to write. So
yeah,
I always kind of knew that. And I just think, we were reading so much, weren't we, in lockdown, and
mm,
and hopefully, I mean, for me, I always read loads anyway. I feel like I read less now because I'm writing, so I
yeah,
find it harder to like work in the reading. But especially with the summer evenings, I've been sitting in the garden and reading lots, and
right,
so I've always done that. But I don't know if reading's become more embedded, like in our lifestyles more. People want that
yeah,
escape. People want that feel good factor. Um,
definitely,
I know like loads of us were walking lots, like, and I'm trying to still do that like during the pandemic, getting out to nature, that kind of thing. And I think
yeah,
things that make you feel good, and I think reading is one of those things. And it is just that such an escape, isn't it? It's just like
definitely,
limitless
yeah.
possibilities and all these characters that you can meet, and so it's always something that I've always loved doing. And I definitely wanted to write a book that had that feel good factor for people.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because as well, like people quite often know exactly the sort of the genre they're going to go in, and some people
Yeah,
do sort of, go across various ones. Some people only think they can
yeah,
write crime, and some people think, I
yeah,
can only write romance. And if I
yeah.
wrote a romance book, it might have a murder in it,
Yeah,
or
I'm
vice
really in
versa.
awe of people that do that. I know a couple of authors where they do crime novels and romance, like under
Yeah,
separate names. I just think, oh, that's amazing. Like, yeah, how do you do that? So yeah, and I always was very clear that it was going to be that kind of contemporary romance.
yeah.
That's what I wanted to do. So yeah, didn't yeah, it was just always that really.
Did you always sort of that was so there's not any other sort of genre that you would sort of like to try at any point?
So I feel like I like after saying I could never write a crime novel, I'd love to write a crime novel, but I just feel like they're so clever and like the way they like put all these unexpected twists and turns in and
Yeah.
come up with like a genius ending that like nobody saw coming. I just think I just don't do that. I just think that is so ingenious and just so clever that I'm kind of in awe of that, but I'm not sure as an author that I've kind of got that, that skill in me to be able to
Yeah,
do
I don't know, because quite a lot of authors say that when they start writing a crime book, that they don't actually know what's going to happen, and sometimes part of the
it.
surprise is why it's such a good surprise is because
I
they're
was
surprised. But
okay.
I've sort
Yeah.
of, yeah, I'm in all of that because I think, how
Yeah.
do you not know? How does it? I
Yeah.
guess it just sort of,
How do you figure that out? I
yeah,
don't know. So I feel like it just feels like a really complicated puzzle to kind of put together.
yeah.
Whereas I feel like, yeah, I don't have that challenge of trying to come up with like a who done it or a twist at the end that I haven't thought of.
So are you writing? You said you're writing at the moment?
Yes. Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
writing at the moment. Yeah. So
Can you tell
I
us
have
anything about?
So
Yeah.
I have finished the first draft of book two. So
Right.
that has happened. It's back to Blossom Heath. It's a
Oh,
new
good.
character that we haven't seen before in book one. Rose and Jake are still really heavily involved in that story, and lots of the other characters that we have met
Great.
before, but also some new ones as well. So yeah, so it's kind of like the spotlight is on a new character for this book, but we've got
Nice.
the familiar setting and the familiar
Yeah.
Rose and Jake and Mrs. Connolly and all of the people that we love from book one as well.
Yes. So SJ's just said, come on, it's just as hard to write a great romance as it is to write crime. Absolutely. 'Cause the thing is, there is like there is that sort of formula, isn't there? You know, you
Yeah,
want people to because and actually in yours as well is there is a bit of that sort of drama-y sort of
yeah, I
without giving too much
guess.
away, isn't
Yeah,
there?
I think I just always like I'm always when I like if I whether it's like on in a film or on TV or in a book, I'm always really shocked and just like I never saw that coming. Like, how have they thought of this? And I'm always really just in awe of like how have they done this? So I always I probably just think like oh I won't try and do that. It feels very kind of like puzzly, doesn't it? I guess.
Yeah, oh, I'm really glad that you're going back to Blossom Heath. I wondered whether it was,
Yeah,
you know, whether it was a standalone or whether because it sort of it could be, couldn't it? It could be
it
just
could
that's it,
be.
and but actually,
Yeah,
I really like the idea of being able to go back because I think there's so many characters that you sort of, you know, that we met that
yeah,
didn't, you know, because obviously there's people like Grace, you know, the vet who's
yeah,
obviously got her own sort of stories and
yeah.
yeah,
Exactly.
so
So that was kind of always the plan. I think I was always the plan was that I hoped that there would be more than one, and I hoped that there would be a series where we kind of met different characters and had the spotlight on
yeah.
characters. So that was like always like sort of ticking away in the back of my mind when I was writing book one. So yeah, that is So that draft is done. So that's
Great.
good.
Oh, so tying the knot has just said, and in all of anybody who writes a book, how many words do you have to write for a novel? Well, SJ's answered that saying 80 to 100,000 words. So that's a lot, isn't it? 80,000
Yeah.
words.
I
So
mean,
how
I
many
know
was
it
yours?
sounds a lot. I know, I mean, it feels like a lot when you're doing it as well. But
Yeah.
I don't know. Although I always kind of feel like I'm struggling a bit to keep it to under the 100K. I always feel like I think I don't actually know the word count, but I think it was maybe like 93 or something. But
Yeah.
I always feel like but yeah, I'm always feel like I could put more in, but I try to kind of keep under that. And I do normally get to like about 75 and think, how can it be? How can people be finished in 5,000 words? Got loads of stuff still to do. So I think that my problem is always going over rather than under.
Was the editing process difficult for you, or was it fairly
I mean,
straightforward?
obviously, like Books in the City are amazing. SJ's amazing. Like, I feel so lucky that I've just been able to work with such amazing people. And I think
Yeah.
because it is a bit nerve wracking when you're new and you
Mm,
don't really know what the
definitely.
process is. And I just feel like I can always ask questions. Like, they're just amazing. And so I honestly feel so lucky. So it's been quite a big learning curve, but I feel like that's all been good. It's kind of helped my, just like my experience levels, my writing abilities, and obviously going through all of the edits.
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess it was a bit like I didn't really know what to expect until it kind of landed in my inbox and I was sort of looking at what I needed to do. But it's all been fine and it's all been kind of sort of totally achievable stuff. And so I just feel, I feel really lucky that it's just such a great team to work with. And they've really looked after me so well, which I so appreciate. It's just been amazing.
Yeah, that's lovely, isn't it? Because Jenny obviously as well is she's another
Yes.
digital originals sort of
Yeah.
books in the city author, isn't she as well?
Yeah.
There's lots. SJ
Yeah.
will probably give me a list off in a second, but she says if you write 1,000 words a day every day, then you'll have written a book in 3 months. Yeah, it just
Wow.
sounds easy, doesn't it?
Yeah, just 3 months time, I'll have another one. But I won't. But yeah, but I think that does help a lot actually breaking it down into chunks. So quite often when I'm writing, I'll try and set myself. So if I was aiming to do 2,000 a day, which is quite a full-on day of writing, I'll
Mm,
split that into like 4 500-word chunks and take a break after the 500 words, go for a coffee, go for a walk, kind of just break it down. Sometimes you find that, oh, I've got to like 800, and sometimes, so
Yeah.
it's just, I think that's helped me a lot. Another author said that's a technique she used, just chunking it into like 500 words throughout the day. It just makes it feel a lot more achievable and
Yeah,
not
that's
just
quite a
like,
big thing,
wow.
isn't it? Yeah, to go in
Yeah.
and go 2000 actually. Yeah, like you said, I used to do that when I used to write essays. I used to sort of break it
Okay.
up and think, right,
Yeah.
I'm going to have a cup of coffee when I've written 300 words. So I'm
Yes,
going to do
definitely.
this
So
after.
like coffee, chocolate are like the main the main kind of motivators to keep me going. Like a little treat whenever you've done your 500 words and I'm off like for whatever it is. But it's just that break, just getting away from the desk, getting
Yeah,
away from the screen. It's really important because otherwise, just you're just shut in your room with a laptop. So it's really important to make sure that you're kind of getting out and doing other stuff during the day as well.
definitely. So if you have, do you have any advice for anybody potentially who's thinking about writing a book, watching tonight or watching on
Yeah.
this when we play it back, that you'd sort of give them for
Yeah.
starting out as a debut author?
I would say definitely just keep writing and just keep going. I think that it is totally something that even if you think it's beyond your wildest dreams, it can still happen. I feel like I'm proof of that, definitely, because I never thought of it as being a realistic option of something that I could do.
Mm,
So you just never know. And I think if you keep writing, if you love writing, just keep doing it, keep submitting. What's really helped me as well, I think, is meeting other authors has been really helpful.
yeah,
So I'm a member of the Romantic Novelists Association, and there's an Essex-based like group that we meet up and go out for lunch once a month. There's some
that's
really
nice.
experienced authors in that group that have like given me great advice. So I definitely would say look at sort of organisations. So if you're a romance writer, look at the RNA. If you're a crime writer, I'm pretty sure there's like a similar
Yeah,
organisation for crime
yeah,
authors. But for me, that has been and also I only got the opportunity to do the submission to Books in the City because I was in the RNA. It was like a special 1 day
right, yeah,
submission. So actually, really, if I wasn't a member, I would never have sent my book in. So that kind of so that's helped a lot. And I would say maybe have a look at organisations that you could join. That's really helpful. But just I think chatting to other authors is so valuable. And even if you're not a member of something like the RNA, there's bound to be some kind of like buddy writing in your area or
yeah.
writing clubs, that kind of thing that you can go along and chat to people. I think you just learn so much. So that's really helped me a lot.
Have you did do you also sort of do you sort of share your writing? Because I think that's important, isn't it? It's being able to sort of have somebody to as almost like a mentor to be able to share things of
Yeah.
ideas. And,
Yeah, I mean, I haven't, to be honest. I think, yeah, I like apart from obviously, I'll talk to Books in the City and kind of bounce things around with them. But I don't really have like a writing. But I know lots of people do have like writing buddies or
mm,
beta readers and things like that. I don't really have any of that, but I think that would be great if you could find the connections and you had
yeah,
that. That would be fantastic. So I think that there are, and I think it's interesting as well because you don't really realise how many authors maybe live close to you or live near to where you are
no,
that you can connect with and go for a coffee or have a chat and that kind of thing. So it's definitely worth exploring, like what writing groups there are close to you.
yeah, because it can be quite isolating, I imagine. Even, I mean, you wrote in COVID as well, which was
Yeah,
even more isolating. But
yeah,
even like it's a quite a solitary existence, isn't it, being an author? I
yeah,
know,
definitely.
it's
Yeah.
it's nice to have those friends and companions to do that with.
Definitely. And I think just on a kind of headspace level and kind of, like you say, getting away from the laptop, connecting with actual people in real life and not on a
Yeah,
screen is amazing. So I'm still, that's great. And just chatting, it's amazing what you learn from other people and how supportive they've been. And obviously, all of my author friends have been so supportive of this and really excited for me. And that's been lovely to be able to like share that as well.
I saw yesterday you went to the Simon and Schuster offices. Was that exciting?
So exciting. I can't even tell. I think Eshday took the photo and my smile was like that. I was like, there's a sign there, can you take my photo?
Yeah,
It was just, honestly, it was almost like an out of body experience. It was so exciting. I almost wish I could go back to like my 21-year-old self and say, this is going to happen in 20 years time. It would but it just still felt really surreal. It didn't. Yeah,
Yeah.
it just was pinching myself and just going, "Is this really happening? Am I really here?" So it was really exciting.
But it's amazing, and I think you give, you know, people who are watching who sort of, you know, want that sort of thing. It is possible. It's not just like you
Yeah.
said. It can happen. It's not
Yes.
that sort of pipe dream. It can be something that you can
Yeah.
do, and you're sort of
Yeah.
the proof of that. So
Yeah,
that's amazing.
exactly. Because literally that's what I always thought, that it
Yeah,
wasn't. I don't know. It just wasn't realistic, or it wasn't.
yeah,
So I think just like let that, that it is, it can be, and I think
yeah.
it's almost like you don't know what's going to happen until you try stuff
No,
and see where things might take you. So it's always worth just giving things a go and seeing kind of what happens.
good advice. Before we finish, I
Yeah.
was going to ask you what do you like reading, and have you got anything that you'd recommend that you've read recently? You said you like romance.
Yeah, so I would say obviously those feel good kind of romance books. So I'm probably about 20 pages off of finishing The Summer Fair by Heidi Swain. So
Oh,
that's
I love
been my
that.
kind of summer read in the garden. So when we finish this, I'm going to the
I'm
garden before
going to
it
go and finish
starts.
it.
Because I was on the train yesterday and I had 20 pages left, and I was like, oh, I'm not going to finish it before I get off the train. So I'm finishing that tonight. I love all of Heidi's books, but this one's particularly, I love it. It's such a
I
gorgeous
love this one.
story.
Yeah,
So I'm really enjoying that. And I've recently finished Jen's book, The Cornish Hideaway, which again I love.
that's lovely as well.
It's just such a gorgeous story. It's right up my street, just exactly the kind of thing that I like to read. And also I'm a real I love the classics. So I will sometimes like reread Wuthering Heights, Jane Austen, like all of that. Yeah, I just absolutely love those kind of authors as well. So sometimes I'll do some contemporary, and I might go back and reread a book. Like Wuthering Heights is probably my all-time favourite.
Is
So
it?
that,
Yes. And
yeah.
I'm not. I'm a Jane Eyre.
Oh, okay.
I think you're one or the other, aren't you?
Yeah, I
It's
mean,
got to
I
be
love Jane Eyre as well.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
so all of that, I'm hoping that actually we might go to Bath later in the year, because I've never been. I'd really love to do that.
Oh, it's amazing.
Yeah, so I'm definitely like a real romance fan.
Yeah. That's brilliant. Well, thank you so much for joining us, and thank you
Thank
to everybody who's been
you.
watching. And Julie's book is out now, Always by Your Side, and it was on special offer. I don't know if it still is. Is it
Yeah, so
still?
I think it's definitely still on special offer. So it's 99p. And
Bargain.
yeah,
Honestly,
it's
it's
an absolute bargain. So I think it's kind of so it's ebook form. So I think
yeah,
it's Kindle, Apple Books, Google Play. You can kind of find it wherever you get your ebooks from. But yeah,
yeah.
99p.
You can't even get like a third of a cup of coffee for that, can you?
I know. So yeah, it's a great time if you're thinking of buying it. It's a great time now.
Definitely, yeah. Well, thank you so much for joining us, and
It's
thank
okay.
you for it being this is your first one, so
Yeah, my
hopefully
first
the
proper
first
sort
of
of
many.
interview. Yeah, and I'm just so glad all the technology worked
Oh,
and
it's been
I didn't press
amazing.
the wrong
You're like a
button.
pro, honestly. You've been doing it for
My
years.
heartbeat's like really going fast with the nerves.
We'll go and have a nice calming tea
Thank
or a.
you. Thanks
But
so
it's lovely
much.
to talk to you. Yeah, and thank you to everybody for joining us, and
Yeah,
keep
thank
your eye out
you.
for any more future ones
Oh,
that we have
yes,
coming up.
hopefully. Fingers crossed. Thanks,
Bye.
Karen.
Thank
Bye.
you. Bye.